Hey, how you doing? This is George Carlin, and you should listen to Danny Lobel on Comical Radio. I do when I'm in town, which is hardly ever.
Live from the legendary podcast bus in sunny California, it's America's funniest new podcast.
Oh my God, what did you do?
We think it's funny. And now, here are your hosts, Mark Schiff and Daniel Lobel.
Hello and welcome to another exciting and sure to be jam-packed episode of We Think It's Funny. I'm Daniel Lobel. I'm here with my buddy Mark Schiff.
Hello, Danny.
Hello, Mark.
Good to see you. Look what came in, by the way.
Look at those mugs.
The We Think It's Funny mugs just came in.
Fantastic. That's how you know we're making it.
We got mugs with your picture, with my picture on it.
That's the big time. And we've got one of my favorite people in the world in the studio today. Kelly Carlin's with us. Hey, Kelly.
Hi, Danny.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
He's not just saying that, by the way. He's told me that a lot.
Yeah.
You're one of his favorite people.
We're pretty fond of
I
each
always
other.
rub it into Mark that he's not, you know. I say.
So there'd be a little awkward tension
Well,
between Mark and I today?
I just want him to raise his game a little bit,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
fair.
I think I always say there's the potential there for it, but you're right on the cusp.
Just right on the cusp, too.
Can
That's hard.
I ask why you're one of his favorite people?
Because I am perfect.
Wow.
She is. You know,
Mary Poppins, perfect in every way.
She was one of the very first people when we moved here to bring us in. And she said, "Okay, you don't know anybody in LA. We'll be your family."
Wow.
And she and her husband Bob took us out to eat at this place in the marina. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And they opened up their home to us and had us over many, many times. Parties and dinners and all kinds of nice things. And she really is like family.
Well, and I want to say, Danny, that you were one of the first people after my dad died to reach out to me in a very genuine way and invite me to come on to your radio show. And I had never done anything really like that before and never really spoken in public as me.
and you were great. Do you remember this segment we named it?
I don't remember that.
We called it the Carlin Calling with Kelly Carlin Calling In.
Great. Say that 3 times fast, will you,
I
Briz?
don't think you can.
Yeah. Tongue twisters.
So when her dad passed away,
George.
her dad was George Carlin. Still is.
Still is.
Yeah.
He's just not here
he's
anymore.
He's not here, but he's still your dad.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I got to be friendly with him, which was one of the great things of becoming a comedian that ever happened to me.
Sure.
And we would talk sometimes on the phone, and he was really, really nice and caring, and he always had advice. He talked to me like a comedian, not like some kid who thinks he's a comedian, you know? And he would ask me about my sets and what worked, what didn't work, that kind of thing. And he always would encourage me to call him more. And I wouldn't because I would be afraid,
Wow.
you know? But he'd always say, "Call me more. You have my number," you know? And I say, "Yeah, I will." And then I'd wait like 2 months, you know? Because I'm like, oh, he'll get sick of me if I call him too much. But then on occasion, he called me. And he said, "Well, I haven't heard from you in a while."
Amazing.
And people said that was unusual about him. That from what they'd heard, that he would call me.
I would say that's unusual about him because my dad and I never talked that much.
So, well, I'm sure you talked more than I did. But
you know what's funny is I hear these stories. My dad was the laissez-faire kind of dad. He never really gave me advice unless I would directly ask him. And we never talked about creative process at all. His process, or if I was curious about the process, I was terrified to talk to him about it, or just it never even really came up. And when I would call my dad, there was always this feeling on the phone of him being like, I'm interrupting his writing.
Okay.
So it's just very strange for me when I started hearing these stories of him talking to comics. I had no idea he was talking to comics.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me about 15 years. It's been 16 years since he died. It's taken me about 15 years to really process this. That was a separate dad. That was George the comic talking to young comics.
But he was only talking about comedy with
Yes,
me.
exactly.
Yeah.
And George the dad didn't know how to do that with me, like in very like every once in a while they'd be like an email with an encouraging something in it or whatever, you
Right.
know, or he'd pass on something. But yeah, it warms my heart so much that I'm so happy that he got to have those relationships
As
with
far
you
as
guys.
I know, from my entire generation of comedians, it was just me and Liz Mealy that he talked to. And Liz and I were friends.
That is
and
true.
We didn't know for a while that we were both talking to George. Like I didn't know she was, she didn't know I
Wow.
was. Then we made that connection, and we're like, "What? You too? Me too?" You know?
Yeah, it's
Well,
pretty funny.
two comedians that I know well who went on the road with your dad, Dennis Blair
Yes.
and Steve Schaefer.
Yes.
And I mean, they always talked about the great conversations they had with him.
Yeah.
Your father was not a fan of flying, I think.
He just hated the routine of it and having to be
So they would drive a lot to the
sit around a lot
if
of
they-
assholes.
Right. So I think it was Schaefer that said they used to play a game when they were driving. Maybe it was Dennis. Come up with the most horrible ways that a human being could die. They would talk about this in a car. Just
Yeah,
That's great.
that would be with Jerry too, my dad's manager. That sounds like a good conversation they'd
Yeah.
be having in the car for sure. I love that.
you know, as a comedian myself and Danny, whatever his process was, and I'm sure it's just writing, you know, all the time. I mean, it would have been great to find that out, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was at, he was at the MGM or one of those places, and he had a parking spot right in front of.
Yes, he did.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The one, his car was there.
Yep.
So it wasn't a big car. It was.
It was his BMW
BMW,
850 black.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I knew he was there, and the doorman said he only comes down to start it up, you know, to
Make sure the battery's still good.
Yeah, that's the way it was done in the older days.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
had to start it so the battery didn't die on you.
Yep.
The newer cars, you don't really have to do it as much.
Yep.
And they said that's the only time we would see him. He would come down and he'd start the car and sit in there for 5 minutes and go back up and
He's
write some
such a
more.
loner, man.
Yeah.
He was such a loner. Yeah, I think what I wanted from him, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this stuff lately because I'm kind of writing a little bit about it, but I just, you know, that part of the process where you need to like rough draft something and just try it out. And comics certainly write it down, but then you have to try it on stage as a comic, right? You just cannot try it to your mirror in front of you.
Or to your friends.
Or to your
parents.
right, or to your
Right.
friends, or someone like just another human needs to hear it. You need to hear the rhythm and the and all of that. But also that kind of arc in an artist's life where it's like you're not quite sure who you are yet, you know, and then you start to figure out the craft a little bit more, and you start to then trust your voice a little bit. You know, there's just this
Right.
real process about it, and I think because I really dove into my creative process after my dad was gone, and I've been so privileged to have so many beautiful people around me have these conversations with me now. Provenza being probably one of the main ones, him and Rick Overton.
Sure.
But yeah, I think I just, I wish I had had more gumption to talk to my dad about that part, and to get him to open up about his journey around that even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because your dad was who he was, none of us talked to our fathers about stuff.
Oh, that's true.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like,
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for normalizing me. It really does help me.
but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't do anything that
Yeah.
everyone else didn't do.
It's true. And my dad didn't even have a father, so he had really no idea how to father. I mean, he was a great father in many ways, but he didn't have a father, so he didn't know also.
Right.
And he really
Two moms?
he just had one mom. He
Right,
had
right,
had
right.
Mary and his aunt. His aunt Aggie lived with them too. So in some ways, two moms. But yeah, but yeah, you're right. We don't. I think we all regret not having certain conversations with our parents.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a book. I wrote a memoir, and I didn't have a lot to write about my parents because we didn't really sit and chat it out.
Yeah.
I'd come home, do your homework. Here's dinner. Go to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in the weekends we take a drive in the car. The other thing you had to face, or you have to, my parents weren't famous,
Right.
so I didn't have to get and maybe you don't have to get over a hurdle because your dad was who he was.
A huge hurdle.
Yeah. And I hate that should affect you because you are who you are. Your talent is yours. You
Yeah.
have to own that, and it has nothing to do with anyone else.
Yeah, and I think always being in any room that he was in, being completely invisible in that room affects your young psyche.
Sure.
And then also the other thing affects it is that whether I mention it or someone else mentions it and someone figures out who he is when he's not in the room, that changes the energy. And it's just a natural human thing. I mean, but I've been so obsessed with my identity my whole life because of this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something they say: compare and despair.
Sounds like a 12-step thing.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. It's a good
It
phrase.
is a good one,
Yeah.
but it's true.
Yeah.
Anytime I compare myself to, listen, I didn't have a famous father or mother, but who am I to write? You got
Right.
Woody Allen, you got this guy, you got your dad, Bill Cosby, whoever it was,
Yep.
you go, what have I got to say?
Yeah.
You got to push that garbage aside.
I'm so glad I didn't know I was coming for a therapy session, Danny, but I'm feeling better already.
Well,
I was gonna. Okay, go ahead.
just quickly, when we met a long time ago,
yeah.
I had a different podcast called You Don't Know Schiff. And I said I wanted to have you on. And you said to me, it can't just be about my dad.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. And I want to make sure we do that today.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
This will be mostly about your mom today.
Yeah,
Oh, great. Bring the fucking Kleenex.
and your dog. We want to talk about your dog mostly.
And your third grade teacher.
Yes.
As she comes walking into the bus.
But
So-
when you said that to me, I said, yeah, that's right. That's
So-
I
right.
appreciate that. Yes.
The thing what I was gonna say before is when her dad passed away, I remember I was like in disbelief. I just couldn't believe it because he didn't call to tell me he was gonna die or anything. Like
Well, that was a call. He was
So-
trying to dial, but it didn't. Finish.
it's like I had
Yeah.
a secret number to the a
Right.
mystical being
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
that I could dial and he'd answer. But it was like I watched your buddy Jerry Seinfeld on Larry King talking about he had all these comedians calling in and Jerry was in the studio. I think he was in the studio, or he was calling in too. I don't remember, but they were talking that George is dead, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah. I remember
but
that.
he's my friend. He would have let me know or something if he was going to be
Sure.
dead. Just just because it's like a little hard to
Yeah, a little heads up
process.
there. Yeah.
And I said, what if he's not dead? Like, who knows what's real? Let me just call and verify it. So the next day I called up and he answered the phone. Hello? I said, George? He goes, you got a shovel? I said, what? He goes, what? Who is this? He goes, this is his brother, Patrick.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it was
Wow.
like, it just
Did you
sounds
know that?
exactly like
Well,
him.
he did. Patrick did sound very much like my dad.
It's, especially if you're not expecting. I was
Oh,
like,
my God.
so freaked out.
That
'cause-
would
so-
like peel me off the ceiling freaked out.
So I was like, what? He goes, who are you? So I start talking to him, and then we become buddies.
Yeah.
And then I went up to Woodstock to his place. He invited me up to Woodstock, Patrick Carlin, and we got really, really, really high. He gave me this weed that, I'm not a big weed smoker to begin with. Back then now I don't do it at all because I can't handle it. But back then I would do it sometimes. And when I went to, he said, I got some strong stuff. I said, all right. Boy, it was strong. And I was just blasted. And then he comes out, and now I get really paranoid. I start thinking, I'm in the woods, and I got there at night. By the time I got to Woodstock to his house, it was at night. I walked down this path to his house. There's like trees on either side. Nobody knows where I am. Nobody knows who he is. And I start thinking, just because he's George Carlin's brother doesn't make him a savory character, like.
Anyone can
I
kill
thought,
you.
Bill Clinton's brother was like a crazy person,
Jimmy Carter's brother was a nut.
Right. So I'm like, where am I? Who am I here with? And then he comes out with these knives. And he goes, you could really kill someone with this one. I go, whoa. He goes, look at this. You could stab. He had some collection of knives.
So my uncle to say that too.
He goes, you could stab someone right in the gut with this. And he goes, I used to bring cocaine across the country in a truck. And he starts telling me all this stuff. And my head is like I'm going, this guy's going to kill me.
Yeah.
He brought me out here to kill me. He's like some kid who was friends with my brother. I'm going to kill this guy. Why am I here? So I said, I'm going to escape. So I start, wait till he goes to the kitchen or something. He's talking to his wife. Hey, mom. He goes, and then I said, okay, where's the exit? So I leave, but I have no idea where I am, and it's pitch dark.
And you're
I'm-
stoned
and
out of
I'm
your mind.
stoned out of my mind, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, where do I go from here? Where's the highway? Where's the bus? And the next thing hey! And I look over, he's like, he's right there. He goes, what you doing out here? I said, I just came for some air. Well, come inside. I got a drink for you. Okay. I didn't want to tell him, I think you're about to kill me.
Wow.
But anyway, after that, he didn't kill me, and we became very friendly. And
And thank God you gave up weed.
yeah.
No shit.
And then Kelly and I became friendly, and we got to know the whole Carlin family, Dennis and everybody.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the story anyway. And and then Patrick and I, another good story about us is, I remember we went to High Times magazine. He was in New York. I got him to do stand up.
Who, Patrick?
Patrick. He
Wow.
said he had a similar thing what you were saying. He said that he always felt like he was in his brother's shadow,
Yep.
and he always wanted to do stand up, but he said, if I do stand up, everybody's going to compare me to George, and I didn't want to do it when he was alive because I didn't want to like make him feel like I was going into his turf and his territory. But I have all these jokes. He showed me in Woodstock. He had books and books of jokes that he'd written.
Wow.
And he said, I'd love to try him on stage just for the heck of it sometime. I don't think I'm going to be a stand-up, but I'd like to try it. So I said, well, I'll put a show together for you. So we put a show together in the Village, and he came in. He drove in a snowstorm. He was like in his 80s. He drove in a snowstorm. I'm like, you want to reschedule this? He goes, nope.
Wow.
So he comes in a blizzard, and then he goes, I got a buddy up at High Times magazine. Let's go see him. So we go up to High Times magazine and hang out with this guy, and then we leave. And he lights up a joint in the middle of the street in Manhattan. He says, here. And we start walking and smoking, and we're walking, and again, I'm getting, really, really
'cause he
high.
wanted
This
to
is from High Times magazine
He wanted
stuff.
to stop at a knife store, didn't he?
Right, yeah. He was like, this, now I got to finish the job. But he started telling me all these stories about old New York as we're walking through New York. And I don't know if it was the fact that I was high or that his storytelling was really good, but I felt like to this day, I feel like I was walking. I started, if it was a movie, like the city would have turned into old New
Sure.
York as we
Yeah.
were walking.
Yep.
And I started picturing all these things, the milk truck coming down and this and that. And it was a really kind of interesting and cool thing. And then he did stand up, and he was pretty good. He was pretty good.
Is he still with us?
He just
No,
passed.
he died a couple years ago.
Well, did you live in New York?
As a baby. We moved there. I was born in Dayton, Ohio. My mom was born and raised in Dayton and went back to have me. So my dad was trying to be on the road and trying to, make money. And but pretty much right after I was born, we moved into the same building that my grandma Mary, the building that my dad grew up in. We grew up one room studio apartment in there, and was there until '66. We moved out here for Craft Summer Music Hall when my dad was the head writer and comedian for John Davidson's summer
Right.
replacement show, and so yeah, I've been here since I was just before 3 years old, so it's really my only memory. But in New York a lot, like every year we were there a lot, and so
That was up on 121st Street or something?
121st between Broadway and Amsterdam,
And that
yeah.
was not such a great neighborhood.
Not when my dad was growing
No.
up. I mean, now it's, Columbia University's bought everything up
Right.
there and it's all gentrified. But no, it was a tough neighborhood when my dad was growing up, all the way until I was a kid. I mean, in the late 60s, early 70s, we know New York
Anything
was...
past like 100th Street started getting dicey because I lived on 96 between West End and Riverside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that neighborhood.
Yeah.
But my dad lived right across from Teachers College. Like there was also this sense of like these incredible higher learning and spiritual institutions around him. And so that really affected the kind of the air, they were hooligans in this rarefied
Right.
neighborhood
Yeah.
in some ways, intellectual neighborhood.
That was New York. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you moved out here, did you get to see your grandparents? And I imagine we're in New York still.
Yeah, my
very much, or-
grandma. I only knew my grandma from
And
my
your-
dad's side,
right.
and then my in Dayton, I had my grandpa and my step grandma because my grandma on that side, she died before I was born. But yeah, we would pretty regularly. They would come out once a year. We would we were always going to the city at least once a year during the summer. Mom and I would tour with Dad, so we would be traveling with him, and sometimes we would like be in the city and then go out to different places and stuff like that. So
That's
was
pretty cool. You
it
get to
was-
see a lot of the country at least. You know?
Yeah, I did. I did get to see a lot of the country, and being on the road was fun. You know, I was an
Yeah.
only child, so I always had to, you know, I could entertain myself pretty much anywhere. And
What was the greatest place you visited as a kid when you were touring with him?
oh wow, well, I just remember the little things. Like my mother loved going to all the weird little spots when we would be driving somewhere, and so I was always in charge of the map. And Dad would show me where the route is, you know, and what number exit we were getting off or things like that. But my mom would always be like, you know, oh, we have to go to the fish hook museum or
Right,
something,
right.
you know.
Right.
And so we had one summer, I think it was the summer of Watergate, when Watergate was being televised. So it must have been 73, 72, 73,
something like that, yeah.
something like that. We spent 2.5, we rented a camper van and drove around New England. And I think Dad did a couple of gigs. And then I ended up in the place where Pat and Marlene were working. It was a camp, boarding school during the year, camp during the summer in Vershire, Vermont. And my parents dropped me off. And that was like really one of my most vivid summers with my parents. Of course, you know, I have crazy memories. I mean, I was at, you know, I was at the Milwaukee Summerfest when my dad got arrested on
Right.
stage. You know, I mean, there was like crazy
I
stuff.
think you wrote about that in your book.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of, and Carnegie Hall in 72 and stuff like that. But, you know, a lot of backstages of theaters, you know, that's kind of like, that's my home.
Yeah.
I have a deep love of that space.
My kids too.
Yeah.
I was on the road, and the first couple of years, my wife came with me, and we brought the kids with us, and
Mm-hmm.
they'd be in the green room, and I'd be on stage, and they go to Vegas. The first experience was hearing slot machines. And
Oh
seeing
God. Yeah.
women
Vegas.
with their breasts hanging out.
Huge Vegas memories. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
brought my daughters to Vegas. I had a gig. You were on the gig with me.
Yeah.
And
I love the way your daughter goes Vegas.
yeah, so now she talks about Vegas all the time.
She doesn't even
Vegas.
say
Vegas.
Las Vegas. It's like,
Of course.
She's 4 years old.
No, she's in the family. She's in the entertainment family. You just call it
but she was
Vegas.
smoking already.
Yes.
and talking about
So
Vegas.
she saw people smoking
Nickel
and
slots.
drinking. And I walked her through. She wanted to see through the casino, so I walked her through until they said, you can't have her here. But she wanted to see everything's all lit up.
Mm-hmm.
So we get back, and she tells me about a month later. So it was enough time that you know, I didn't think she was holding on to all this. But she goes, you know, I'm married now. I said, oh yeah. She goes, yeah, I have a husband, and his name is Jerry. I said, okay. I think it's because I play Tom and Jerry for her. I said, so tell me about Jerry. So she goes, oh, he lives in Vegas. I said, okay. Where? She goes, in a hotel. I said, okay. What does he do? She goes, he mostly smokes and drinks.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I hope I'm not raising her wrong, you know, but it's
Well,
pretty...
I turned out okay, Danny.
Yeah,
So
And my
you guys
kids too.
much more clean living than my parents were.
yeah,
So
yeah.
There was some video about a guy who had was carrying his kid, and he stopped at a slot machine, and he let the kid pull it, and a $2 million winner,
no.
and they wouldn't give him the money because on the video they saw the little kid
Yeah.
Wow. They find any reason.
My
not to.
my grandpa, he too would give me coins and go, okay, put the coins in it and pull it, and then, you know, the security guard would come and they go, well, I'm George Carlin's father-in-law, and they were like, oh, Mr. Hosbrook, you're just gonna have to leave with the daughter.
Right.
You're not allowed to be in here with her. She's not allowed to play the games.
Did you get to meet any of your heroes because of your dad? Like any people, musicians or artists that you really wanted to meet?
You know, my dad didn't travel in those circles. We, you know, when he, you know, the rock and rollers were in one place and we were always in another, like certain festivals, I guess there was. But the one time I did get to meet, we took a vacation in Hawaii, and we stayed at the Kahala Hilton, very fancy in Oahu. And it was Christmas time. And we get there and we see a sign, and it's there's going to be a New Year's Eve show in the ballroom with Steve and Edie, and oh my God, I just completely blanked on his name, Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow.
And
What a
so, you know, because We Are Who We Were, my dad knew Sammy, and I'm sure he knew Steve and Edie from tons of different dinner theaters and stuff from the 60s. And so we got to have dinner with them, and Sammy sang the Candyman. I mean, come on, as a kid,
Wow.
this is
Wow.
big. This is big things. So yeah, I mean, like but I never really met a lot of people there. My dad was a loner. He was more of a writer than he was not an extrovert. My mother was the extrovert. When my dad was on the John Davidson show in '66, I had a huge crush on John Davidson, but then again,
He was a handsome young man.
a very handsome young man. And we got to go out to he had an Arabian horse farm or something. I remember getting to go out there and meeting the horses. And recently, I'd say right before COVID, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I got to meet him again and hang out with him for a while.
John Davidson.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's really a great guy. I mean, he looked so clean cut and so
Is he still like that?
very much a groovy guy, like
Wow.
politics in the right place, as far as I'm concerned. And that was just the 60s.
Do you remember when there was that fire when he was performing?
No.
All kinds of people were killed in the theater.
What?
Really?
Yeah, the doors were locked. They couldn't get out. It was John Davidson, I believe.
I had no idea. Never. I have
Did
no
you
memory
hear
of
about
that.
No.
No. Oh, that's
I
horrible.
think it put a cap on his career for a long time.
I think you told me you used to ride horses as a kid, right?
I did, and I started about a year ago again.
You're back at it.
Yeah, I'm back at it
Do you-
after
do you own a
40
horse?
years. No, not now, because I don't have a daddy to pay for it.
So where do you ride?
I ride up at Will Rogers.
Yeah, the state park.
Yeah, and there's a barn up there, and you take lessons. You can't own a horse up there, but you can take lessons. So it's probably the cheapest way you can do it. I was a champion hunter jumper equestrian back in the day when I was a teenager. Owned 4 or 5 horses. My parents owned a big ranch in Malibu, and
Wow.
blah de blah. It was all very fancy. And so I rode 6 days a week, 4 or 5 horses, like a
Wow.
lot. Yeah. And so I was, up there like top 10 on the West Coast kind of a person. And then gave it up for an older man in cocaine, as
Yeah.
one does in their 20s.
Sure, you
I
gotta
mean,
move on.
what else are you going to do?
You kept riding, but different.
But yeah, I got back to it a year ago when I turned 60, and it's been the best thing I've done in a long time.
You got off the horse to get on the horse.
Yes, exactly.
So, at this age, all the bouncing, does it affect you at all?
Yeah, but the thing is I know what the hell I'm doing. The thing is, I know what I'm doing.
It's
and
like riding a horse.
and
You got
it's
right back
just
on?
like riding a horse. You
Okay.
get back on the horse. It's the mind is willing, and I know what to do, and my cellular memory knows to do, and my muscle memory knows, but my actual muscles are not as cooperative as they used to
Right,
be.
all of us.
They're not 16 anymore.
No.
It's a big difference.
I knew a veterinarian, and I was asking him about horses. He goes, they're so stupid. This is what he tells me. He goes, they're so stupid and so mean that he was bitten a couple of times by horses just out of nowhere.
Well, I'd bite him too if he thought I was stupid and
Yeah,
mean. I don't
you
think
know,
horses are stupid or mean.
I don't know if I trust this veterinarian
I know.
anymore.
Gee, sounds like he
He
really
also-
enjoys his
He
job.
also didn't like dogs, by the way. This
didn't
guy
like
didn't like
dogs?
dogs. A vet that didn't like dogs.
Wow. You know what? This guy should go into, maybe proctology or
Yeah.
something, because he is an asshole.
Dogs are a bunch of jerks. And let me tell you
They're
about
so
cats.
stupid. Mosquitoes are the brightest on
Wow.
the planet.
Dude, like, boy, did he pick wrong. That's horrible.
You know,
People trusted this guy.
Right? They gave him a diploma. Yikes.
we had a guy, Jonathan Klein, who worked with dogs and trained them, and he told us about our dog. And I love Jonathan; he was the best. And he goes, "Your dog is not the brightest star in the sky."
That's
That's
fair.
what he said.
I've had many dogs over the years, as dog people do.
Seven dogs.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's a range. There's a range in
I've
intelligence.
got one like that right now.
Yeah.
You do the little,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
little one.
There's one that you wouldn't trust, because
Yeah.
with the car keys, because it might figure it out. And then
Right.
there's the other one where you're just like, God bless your soul.
Yeah. You and I have the same vet now because
do?
you turned
Werber?
me on to him, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like the greatest vet ever.
He is amazing. Does he kiss your dog as soon as you bring him in?
Yeah, see, that's why I think he's amazing. I don't know how he is as a doctor, but he loves the dogs.
Doesn't matter.
So that's all I care
He's this
about.
close to tonguing with the dog.
That's a little
He's-
weird.
He gets very, very intimate with the dog.
But I think
No matter what kind of dog either. You could bring in like a vicious pit bull and he goes, "Come here, kid. Come here."
The weird part is he says, can you leave the room and give us a minute? That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little
When
awkward.
I come in, the dog looks terrified.
Yeah.
No, but truly, he seems to really care, and that's I think what you look for in a vet. They don't insult the animals.
Yes, like what the hell?
Yeah.
Are there more and less trustworthy horses? Like when you get there, can you be like, I'm not going with that one.
Yeah, well, there's horses that are like dogs, a little more intelligent than the other ones, a little more tolerant. And then there's like the ones that were like all the ones that we ride when you're riding at a place where you take lessons like this, they're all older. They've all
Sure.
been around a while. And so the ones I get to ride used to be, hunter jumper champion types, but they're in their elderly years, and so we don't work them as hard. But they know what they're doing. They're great, and some of them are a little more temperamental, and they'll have to put the more advanced riders on them. And
What's the weight limit for a horse riding?
it depends on
I feel like if I showed up, the horses would be like, "Oh hell no!"
Yeah.
they have big horses, but
Yeah.
not at this place. But yeah, it's
I went riding last year. My wife and I went to Ireland.
Oh.
No, well, that we actually went there too, but we went to Iceland. I meant on
oh
Iceland.
wow.
And we went riding horses on the black sand beaches in Iceland.
Wow.
Beautiful weather. It was so,
That's incredible.
yeah.
It's kind of scary though to ride a horse on a beach or something like that, because horses are like, oh, there's no limits. And if you don't quite know what you're doing, or if the horses aren't, if they're, it can be a little like, yeah.
I'm not sure I understand. Like, what do you mean? Like, the path is a limit, but a beach, because it doesn't have a path, is not a limit?
Yeah, I mean, like when you ride in a ring, it's a ring, right? And the horses know their job. And then trails, most trail horses are like, yeah, I know the trail and can't wait to get back home. But it depends on the horse too. I mean, if these horses, that's all they do all day is go on the beach and have tourists on them, then they're
Right.
probably pretty well behaved. They
Right.
probably are. But
Right.
I used to ride very advanced, high-spirited horses, and we would get them on the beach, and they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
This is great!"
We're going to take off now.
Yeah, and you would gallop them and stuff, and it was fun. But it's also like, they're not quite used to the beach and all of that, so a little
My
anxiety.
kids were born after, like when I was growing up like you, and you really saw what horses can do when they were trained, like in the circus.
Yeah.
You remember they would stand up and they
Yeah.
had that little hat on.
they would,
you know the hat they put on
with the
little-
feathers.
Yeah, with the feathers
Yeah.
and stuff, and they would bow and then stand up and whatever. So my kids will never see really what a horse is made of.
Capable of,
Yeah. And then they had to stop all that.
because of the animal cruelty.
Yeah,
Because your vet was in charge of the horse.
truly
So stupid.
Bunch
these
of dumb, mean animals. Unbelievable.
crazy
So we have some stories.
Yes, sir.
That are going on
in the world in general.
in the world, and we're gonna see if we can find something
Wear
funny in them.
glasses. Do you always wear glasses?
Yeah, I've got the progressives because all the distances need help.
Right. What was that saying now as you get older? If you had to go 2 weeks without sex or your glasses, which one would it
Oh,
be?
yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer
Sex.
that.
What's sex that? What's that?
Give me my glasses.
You always give me so much to look forward to, Mark.
Good times.
I went on Ozempic for a little while, and it killed my libido.
Did it?
And so I got off it, and Mark goes, "What do you need a libido for?"
Yeah. He's a married guy. I don't know what he's talking
I
about.
mean, it's at 8:00. You're too tired. Everyone's too tired for anything.
Yeah.
My Bob and I during the pandemic. Oh, can we go to bed even though it's not dark out yet? We're just like so overwhelmed emotionally, and not go to bed to have sex. Just go to bed to sleep.
go to-
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long are you married?
We've been together since '92,
Oh.
and next year will be our 30th wedding anniversary.
Wow! Congratulations.
So we got married in 91.
And we got married in
90
'95.
Actually, 90. We got married.
Yeah.
34 years.
Yeah.
Went by like 10 minutes underwater.
You know what's scary about turning 60 is things like I did something 35 or 40 years ago is just, you were an adult at that age.
Right.
That's what's a little weird about
Yes,
it.
it is.
It's like, wow, wow, 35, huh? It takes a minute to wrap your head
And
around
you-
these things.
How many kids? 1, 2,
0.
0.
0.
I thought you mentioned something. I'm sorry.
Near. Yeah.
Well, we got 3 boys, and they're all working out of the house, making money
Well done.
off the dole.
Well done, Dad.
So, first one here. This kid was kidnapped 26 years ago, and he was rescued just recently from a neighbor's cellar 300 feet from where his parents lived. 26 years he was underground
What?
in a sheep pen they kept him in. So, what were we talking about?
I'm just like, the guy's, on the one hand, the guy who kidnapped him is gonna be like, you missed out on some of the worst years, him as a
Right,
teenager.
you wouldn't have wanted him anyway in the teenage years.
Wow.
Yeah, but can you imagine? He's like so close but so far away. They're looking over the whole world, but he's right next door.
I mean, was he in a box the whole time? This is what I'm
They
thinking.
had him in a basement, but it was like the guy had hay on the floor. It's just a very weird story here. That's what he looks like now. He looks pretty
Wait,
normal.
and
I had a neighbor who was an older guy who I thought was possibly kidnapped people and kept them in his house. And I
Smoking
because he
again?
was weird the way he was acting, and I got really paranoid about it, and I started looking around his house, and then I knocked on his door, and I was gonna confront him about it, and thankfully he wasn't home, but somebody answered the door, and it was a carer, and they explained to me that he has dementia. And I said, oh, that explains all the weird behavior. And then I was much better about it. But I just thought he would, because of the way he was acting was so bizarre.
yeah.
And he was always looking over and looked like he was paranoid all the time. I thought maybe this could be the kind of guy who keeps kids locked in his house or something.
Right.
And I'm going to bust those kids out of there.
You
But
need
it's
to
just
write horror movies or something. Like your imagination is really good in this area.
It doesn't always go dark. It's just these two stories happen to come up in the same show. But
what I want to know about this
Meanwhile,
100.
he looks pretty good, right?
Well, that
I mean,
sweater is horrible.
Oh, it's wetter.
My God, what does he think it is? 1985?
I
is
don't
it?
know that he was taking shopping a lot in the last 26 years.
But I just want to know, how do the parents? How does he 185 feet away from where, all these years, and then he was just brought up in a room,
Yeah.
what kind of personality does he have? How do you?
Well, glad you asked. Let's bring him in now.
Here he is, ladies.
Here
Can
he
we
is, ladies and
please?
gentlemen.
I need to interview this person.
In a sheep pen. That's you have to bring a sheep pen into a house. So they brought in,
yeah.
a farm apparatus into a domestic. What a weird guy to.
So let me tell you,
What?
I know for a fact, and even though it's not written, this guy has got to be getting marriage proposals left and right.
Oh, well,
Right?
that's
Because the sheep pen.
That's just what people do. Like these guys in prison that murder
Yeah.
40 people. There's 100 marriage proposals that these guys get. There's somebody that
Well, they're all-
specifically is looking for someone that's been locked in a basement for 26 years.
Because it's you don't, anything you do is going to impress them.
I guess so.
there's that.
But you can't ask them
The bar
questions
is
like,
set
have
so
you
low."
seen the Netflix? No,
No.
No, haven't seen. Have you anything?
nothing.
It's like that Brendan Fraser movie. Do you remember that movie where he's locked in a bunker for all this time? I don't remember what it's called. It's a
No.
great movie. Christopher Walken plays his dad, and he thinks it's the Cold War's going on, and he thinks they're about to be blown up. So he built a bunker under the house, and he brings
Oh.
them in, and he thinks that everything was destroyed up
Right.
there, and there's radiation, so they have to stay. And he finally leaves the bunker, and it's been so many years, and because he was raised well by his parents, and he didn't have all these outside distractions, he's a really nice guy, and women love him because they're you never find a guy who's chivalrous and nice like this. and it's a great film. I can't remember the name of it,
Huh.
What
But-
about the one where am I forgetting his name? Chauncey Gardner.
Oh,
but Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers, yeah.
Being there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same story. He's been in that house for
Well, he was a little bit off,
but he hadn't been outside that
he
little
was on the
environment
spectrum, as they
Yeah.
say.
for 20, 30 years. So when he gets outside, all of a sudden, the music in the world, he had never met anybody.
You know, someone did our family tree. I think I've said this on the show before, and I'm 6 cousins with Peter Sellers.
Are you really?
And I feel like that's like a really cool
That's totally
thing.
cool.
Even though I never met him or know nothing, of his life or whatever.
I know his
but-
daughter, Victoria.
Oh, really?
Really?
You
So
could
I'm
be
related to her.
seventh cousins to Victoria.
I'm related to her.
You are.
She should come
Where-
over for a family reunion.
Does she like him at all?
I'd never discussed that with her.
Yeah.
I was a teenage party girl.
Right.
That's how I knew her.
I've met a few other comedians' daughters at your house.
Yes.
And
We have those at times.
I met Kitty Bruce there, Rain Pryor,
Mm-hmm.
and Lord Buckley's daughter,
Lori Buckley.
Lori
yeah.
Buckley.
Yeah.
And she has some pretty cool stories, Lori Buckley.
Yeah. Lord Buckley's that needs to be a movie someday.
Yeah.
Really.
The
that,
Naz.
The Naz and this the whole court, the royal court and all that stuff. And yeah, my dad was very enamored by him and was very influenced by him. So
Yeah.
yeah, Lori's great.
You don't
So-
hear much about Lord Buckley, but he was
No,
very
he's
interesting.
very-
Some people in the know, they know.
yeah.
If you know, you know.
He was
Yeah.
a real con guy, too. Do you know the stories about him? He didn't have any money. He kept running out of money. And he would go to the neighborhood, like, stores and tell, like, go to the butcher shop. And he'd say, listen, I love you and you're the best. I want to throw a party for you. And on Saturday night, I have a whole bunch of people over. And he goes, really? And he goes, you want me to bring anything? Why don't you bring 20 steaks? And they go to another store and say, we want to throw a party for you. Yeah, why don't you bring cakes, a bunch of cakes. And you get all these people to supply free food.
Oh my
But
god.
then they'd have to feed them, right?
Yeah.
At the party.
So
but he loved a party.
Yeah.
it was amazing. Kitty Bruce used to come in to Catch a Rising Star a lot when in the beginning, and I used to see her there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at Catch.
Yeah, yeah.
Did she ever do any performing?
She sang. She sang.
She would
yeah.
get up and sing.
Yeah.
She's where now? Arizona?
She's in Pennsylvania.
Does she have anything to do with animals?
No. She built a Lenny's House, which is a rehab center for women. She has a nonprofit that she runs.
She's
I
very
went to
sweet.
Lenny's
Yeah.
grave, here in California, and they don't even mention he's a comedian on the stone.
Where's his grave?
Not Hill. What's the famous cemetery?
Oh,
right
Hill-
over the valley. No, over the valley.
Oh, the one in the valley.
Yeah, it just says Leonard Alfred Schneider,
Huh.
father.
Wow.
You go to a lot of people's graves.
I'm leaving in an hour to go.
He's got a gig.
How can you not go see Lenny's? I just went to see Rodney's the other day
Right.
when I was in Westwood.
Well, if you come to the National Comedy Center, all you listeners
I've
out
been
there, did you see Lenny's trench coat in the Blue Room? I mean, I go down there and I see the trench coat, and
Jamestown, not in Jamestown.
in Jamestown,
In Jamestown, yeah.
yeah. And downstairs in the Blue Room is Lenny's trench coat that he wore on stage because he knew he was going to be
The
arrested.
transcripts.
And his typewriter is there, and
Wow.
and some of the letters that he wrote
Wow.
to different attorneys and different prosecutors and different newspapers. But God, when I saw that trench coat, it was like the Shroud of Turin. It was
Yeah.
like that level
I remember.
of like holy energy around it.
Did you go see the Lucy Desi Museum?
I've seen that. Yes,
Pretty good, right?
It is. It's a little quirky and a little fun, and I know they're updating it, but
Half is about the marriage. half the
love their
museum.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
got the wax figures. and
Yep.
Little
Yeah.
table from the show. It's really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, this summer, Joan Rivers' joke files are coming to the. They've
Oh, that's
been
cool.
donated to the National Comedy Center, and they're going to open an exhibition about that. So that's going to be cool.
You know, it was great on. Did you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I can't. It's one of those shows that makes me anxious. Every once in a while, I will. I love it. I think he's genius, but it just makes me so anxious.
They come up with a fake name on.
Oh, I heard.
Curb, and it's Journey Gunderson.
Oh yeah, no, because she was at George Shapiro's memorial.
Yeah.
And they were all sitting in the first 3 rows, of
Right.
course, and they met Journey Gunderson. And so, yeah, I heard it was in the last episode with Jeff Garlin.
I was at the memorial. You there?
Shapiro's?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
quite
beautiful.
something.
Oh my God, it was like the who's who. All I kept thinking is these are our elders. I mean, like when Mel Brooks, Norman Lear, Dick Van Dyke.
One after another.
One
they
after
went up.
another. And I'm like, these are like the last of our elders. Carl was already gone at that
Yeah.
point, I mean, just
George used to come on the road with us.
George was amazing. When he came to Jamestown,
We're talking about George Shapiro.
George Shapiro,
Just to
who
keep
was Jerry Seinfeld's manager, Andy Kaufman's manager, and this guy, he was just pure joy. Pure joy was George Shapiro. And when I got him to come to Jamestown, and he came for a big week and all that kind of stuff.
It's back. Sorry.
And he
it's good, Caesar.
we left the Comedy Center after he went through all the exhibits and did the whole thing, and he skipped down the street and he's saying, I love Kelly Carlin.
Right.
I love Kelly Carlin. And I thought, oh my God, he's skipping and singing my name. And then I go to his memorial and I find out, oh, he always skipped and he always sang people's names.
He was just very kind to everybody.
He was incredible. He was an incredible human being.
I traveled with Jerry for a long time, and George would come to the corporate gigs, not the regular little theaters.
Yeah.
And I would get off stage. He'd always watch me, and he'd grab my shoulder and goes, everyone loved you. Every person.
so
I was
great.
out there. Everyone.
He's so
they were laughing
beautiful.
so hard. You wouldn't believe it, Mark. You're great.
Yeah. I remember I met him right before my dad died. My dad did a thing at the Paley Center, and my dad was talking about doing his solo. He wanted to do a one-man show on Broadway called New York Boy. And George Shapiro stood up. I didn't know who this man was at the time. Stood up and said, I'd invest in that. And then my dad died a few months later. And then I got to know George a little bit here and there after he died. And I saw him in a restaurant in Beverly Hills. And I sat down and I said, George, I'm actually going to do my own solo show and, and everything. And he opens up his wallet and he takes out $100 bill and he slides it across the table. And he says, let me be your first investor.
Wow.
And it was just like,
that's sweet.
He's such a sweet man.
Yeah, no, he used to do because we would have breakfast together, Jerry, George, Kevin Doctorman, or this guy Rob Prince, the agents, and myself. And then in Jerry's room, and George, the night before, he'd take out a pad. He didn't do his phone. He used the phone a lot. Take out a pen and write. Take everybody's order for breakfast. He would do the executive producer of Seinfeld. And he'd go, Mark, what are you going to have? And he used to be a waiter in the Catskill Mountains. So he'd write everything down.
Wow.
And they put the ordering, always got it perfect. And then one time, the table was filled with 100 plates and dishes. And he showed how he could pull the tablecloth out from under everything. He was supposed to do this, and he did it.
Did he?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's
but
incredible.
he was thrilled taking our orders.
That's so cute.
I said, how can I give
What a
George
sweet
Shapiro
guy.
my order?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's another one here.
Mm-hmm.
So do you eat leftovers?
Sure, yeah.
When you're married, you
My husband's the king of eating leftovers, but I'll eat a leftover or two. Sure.
So they talk tips on how to properly store and reheat. They talk about rice here. He says you can become ill if you don't do the right thing when
With rice.
yeah, because it gets they call it dried rice syndrome. There's a syndrome that you can get from not heating up the rice.
Everything's a syndrome.
Older women get it too.
Yeah.
Dried rice.
So what do you go through if you think something's been? At what point won't you eat something?
I'm like, after a few days, I've decided that it's already going a little weird. Whereas my husband's like, oh, it's only been 6 days. It looks fine. And he'll heat it right up and eat it. And he's fine. And nothing happens to him. I'm a little hinky. Like, lettuce has got to be a little, I can't be a little slimy. Well, slimy's gross. But I'm,
Has to still
probably
have form.
24, 36 hours. I'm okay.
I'm exactly like you. My wife, she goes, "You're out of your mind. Throw this away."
I know.
Yeah.
Clearly, I was spoiled as a child, and my husband definitely was not.
But we didn't have dates on food when we were growing up, like expiration dates.
We didn't. How did we do that?
We ate it.
I guess so. And we just kind of smell, you used to smell the milk. Remember
Everything
that?
was about smell.
You would smell the milk.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
dad would go,
Yeah,
still good.
it's
You
so
can
good.
have it. And, it'd be like, and
didn't
you
even
trust
taste-
it.
You didn't even taste it. You just smell it, and then
Yeah.
unless you poured it out in a big
That
clump.
and that's
Came out.
happened. That has happened. I remember.
Then you know it's only got another day left.
Yeah.
That's-
Right. But I think this country too, we throw away stuff much quicker than in the poorer countries.
Oh, and I feel so guilty when I do it.
Me too.
Ever since I was a kid, I felt guilty.
So in the
about that.
Jewish religion, my mother, there was an old thing they used to do. If you threw away food, you would kiss it.
Oh.
Like if you had to throw away like some, of course, people are starving you, and it's kind of like, thank you for this, and I'm
Right.
sorry I had to, but you remind yourself that it's not the right thing to do. do if possible.
Interesting. I'm Jewish. I never heard of that.
Oh,
You were
yeah.
clearly not raised right,
No.
Danny. Yeah. Yeah.
So, are burritos and tacos considered sandwiches? This judge actually made a decision and qualified burritos and tacos as sandwiches.
Thank God we're spending our judicial time on
Right.
these important issues in America. This is clearly over someone suing because they ordered a sandwich and they got a burrito or something. God knows.
And I'm sure maybe the people, the Mexican people, or are very upset that it's not classified as something like everyone else's.
Maybe.
To me, it's a sandwich, right? I mean, it's bread. It's just very thin bread.
Yeah, it's right. But see, the thing is, my question is a taco and a burrito really a different thing? Because
Wow,
it's not. It's a tortilla. It's got some protein. It's got some other stuff in it.
Rice and beans. right?
Rice and
Yeah.
beans, possibly some cheese. That's the thing I love about Mexican food. It's all the same food. It's just slightly different shaped.
Right.
You're picking your shape is really all you're picking at
There
the
you go.
Mexican restaurant.
And it's wrapped differently, right?
Right, that's what I mean, the shape
burrito's
part.
tucked in.
Yeah.
Like,
You can't see any of the insides, whereas the tostada, all you see are the
Everything.
insides, but it's
yeah,
the same
yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people could really wrap a burrito so tight. I mean, these people must have worked in hotels and fixed the beds because
Yeah.
these things are, it's
Or like in baby nursery wards where they like swaddle the
Yeah.
kids. Like a good burrito is a swaddled burrito.
Have you ever had a sushi burrito?
my wife has those. She has the low carb burrito. They wrap it in lettuce, but
Well, the sushi burrito that I've had is wrapped in seaweed.
Oh.
It's basically like a big sushi roll, but
Yes.
it looks like a burrito. And they put like a bunch of stuff, fish and avocado and all kinds
and-
of stuff in
right.
it, and you eat it like a burrito.
Really?
Yeah.
And doesn't it just crumble immediately because the seaweed is like that papery stuff, isn't
No,
it?
it gets kind of like, boingy. I don't know.
That is a very official food word. It
Right.
gets boingy.
It gets very boingy.
Yeah.
It's like the more gluttonous way to eat sushi. You wrap it up into a
Yeah,
massive.
I don't like the seaweed
Yeah.
as part of it. It always seems like it gets in the way. It's like, and it can get chewy. That seaweed
Yeah.
can get chewy, definitely.
I never liked seaweed. I was never at the beach with my parents. I go eat that stuff floating on top of the water there.
Yeah.
I like it. I like seaweed. I'm sorry. I'm in the minority here. I know.
It's
I'm
okay.
Controversial
Trader
opinion.
Joe's has got a good seaweedy kind of like snack thing that you can eat.
I get
too.
that.
They're like
yeah,
little
I
light, little
those.
papery ones, which are okay. They kind of almost
And they
melt
got
in your tongue.
seaweed crackers
They do.
with the little green.
They're
stuff.
very
It's
good.
starting to sound an awful lot like you both like seaweed.
You know what? It is very good for you though. It does have a lot of good green things in it.
Yeah.
So, here's one. Australia's richest woman, right? Her name here is, I can't see her name, Gina Reinhardt, is very upset. She's a billionaire,
Okay.
and she wants her portrait removed from an exhibition in a museum.
Oh,
So let me just show you.
gee, I can't imagine why. It's so flattering.
Worst looking painting you've ever seen.
The worst looking painting.
Wow.
I'll give you another look there.
She shouldn't have said
It's-
anything because now it's everywhere. It's not just in
Right.
that exhibit.
It's almost as bad as that woman who fixed the painting of Jesus in the Italian church.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen that
No,
fix?
no.
I have seen that.
Oh,
it's terrible.
It's almost like that. Like you're like, oh, really? Like a 4-year-old drew that.
someone-
Such an improvement.
If someone does a bad painting of you, just be quiet. Let it run its
This
course.
I
museum
think so. Just
was
let
in
the
the middle of nowhere.
That's yeah.
Probably 6 people go to this
And
museum.
now 6 million have seen
It's
it.
all over the internet.
Yeah.
No matter how many billions, she'll never get all of this back.
Oh my!
And you know what I thought now is all these artists now know she's so upset and they hate her for being a
Oh,
billionaire.
guess
They're
what?
painting like crazy
Oh
now.
yeah. There's a great story. I've always hoped it to be true, but Frida Kahlo, she
Sure.
would travel to New York because were they married? Her husband? Were they actually the muralist? I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, they would come to New York, and they were because he was a muralist for the Rockefeller Center and all of that. They're hanging out with what was back then the billionaires. And Frida would have none of it with these people. She was just, she was this very unique person and a communist, basically. So one of the socialites asked her to make a portrait of her, and Frida said, "Yes, absolutely, I would do that." And spent however many days, I don't know, sketching her or whatever she was doing or whatever. And then when she revealed the painting to her, it was a painting of the woman dead on a sidewalk after jumping out of a skyscraper window.
Wow.
It's my most favorite thing on planet
Does she
Earth.
still have to pay for it?
I
imagine you get payment in advance on those.
I'm guessing, hopefully, yeah, or at least a good down payment on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god!
Have you ever had a portrait done of yourself?
I have not. No, not
You?
like that.
I have too.
I've painted myself, but I haven't had. Well, no, I have had many portraits done of myself.
Well, you have
because
comic books.
the comic
of you.
books, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right up there. You got your
Yeah,
old
well, that's
stuff.
a portrait right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to pose, no nudity,
Uh-huh.
but I would pose in these artist classes. I had a friend, his mother was a painter. She said they're looking for people to come and pose.
And you didn't do it nude?
No. Well,
Okay.
they saw me nude and they said, just forget it. Put
Come
a hat-
after
They
the
had somebody else,
nudity.
a different body put in front of you.
Oh, that hurt. Because he's seen me at the urinal.
That, it doesn't
So
make sense.
I would sit and get, and the student would paint me, and then the teacher would come and fix it up. So it was actually, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I would sometimes sit down on those sidewalk people that have the chalk
Yes,
thing.
down in Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's horrible. It's generally
It's yeah. People are hard to do.
they
I'm a
got the Frank
doodler,
Sinatra and they got the Liza Minnelli.
and then they
Yeah.
have you.
You.
And you're like, oh, just no. You worked for hours on that Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
didn't it? You worked 20 seconds on my portrait.
That's exact. So, Taylor Swift. And
I think this is
Travis-
our last one because we're
We're what?
we're at the time. We're at the time.
Are we okay? We're going to do that then. Here. Okay, so we'll do that one. So Taylor Swift and you know her boyfriend, Travis
The football player.
Kelsey's.
Yeah,
Kelsey.
Kelsey.
Yep.
So people are complaining. She stayed with him in Lake Como. Have you been there?
I have not been to Italy. I will be going this autumn. I'm co-leading a retreat in Tuscany. But anyway,
Wow, the Tuscany area.
Yes.
You said that so calmingly.
well, I want people to relax with
Right.
us in Italy. Come
Tuscany.
with
Even
me.
use the word
Yes.
autumn, which is like the nicer way
Autumn.
to say the
Oh,
fall,
yeah, absolutely.
not the fall.
I'll tell you a quick little story, but they're staying in a place which didn't seem that much money to me compared to how much money she's a billionaire. $21,000 a night. They stayed in a villa. Okay.
It's probably George Clooney's. He's probably just raping them for that. Anyway,
Yeah, that's so. People were complaining about them, but that's not.
what are they complaining about?
They
that
wanted
they
them to
spent
stay in the
money?
Holiday Inn.
Yeah, they.
What do they fucking care what people pay
People
for
don't
shit?
like when they
Yeah.
flaunt it, but
Oh, but you know why? Because they wish they had it. I mean,
Right.
come on.
That's true,
This
too.
is America, people.
You know who's not complaining? The person who charges $21,000
Yeah.
a night.
not complaining at all. Not complaining.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a quick story. What happened in Italy? I went with my kids. We went to an Italian restaurant. Mm-hmm. Although I don't know why.
It's just a restaurant.
That's
in
in
Yeah.
Italy.
every restaurant in Italy. I don't know why I had to say Italian
Yeah.
restaurant. And what do you think we went to eat? Yeah.
Pasta.
Well, close. She's with
Pizza.
Yeah.
So we order a pizza, a cheese pizza, and they bring it out, and we start eating it, and it's a weird type of dough covering everything. Everything's
Yeah,
inside.
each little region has their own version of a.
So we can't
thing.
taste the cheese.
Mm.
My kids say I can't taste the cheese. We ordered cheese pizza, and everybody's agreeing at the table. So I called the waiter over, and we said we can't
This is
taste the
always a fun moment in a foreign country.
Yeah, 'cause
calling
they
the
know-
waiter over.
Americans calling the waiter over to
Yes.
complain about.
Uh-huh.
So he kind of understands, but then he brings the owner over, and then the woman in the kitchen, his mother, she comes over, and everybody's talking, and they all tell us that there's cheese in there, but it's hidden.
Mm.
It's hidden. So I said, so it's like God, He's here, but you can't see him. They walked away so fast.
Yeah.
And it just, we never saw them again. They wouldn't come near us again. I thought it was a great line, actually.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So when in that country,
Yeah.
I also don't drink, and I ordered a fruit salad. And I said, nothing, all natural. She got natural. I take a bite, just poured like a gallon of wine all over it before I got to me. So you got to be careful.
So, you know, these people right now are on a podcast in Italy telling the story about you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have a good time there. You're gonna love Italy.
I'm looking forward to it. We're going to Florence early, like 5 days early, and just going to spend time in Florence, maybe take the train down one day, just Venice, just to go like, okay, we looked at Venice.
By the way, Florence is a museum that has her portrait in it. You got to go see
This
it.
this woman's
This
portrait.
one.
I will definitely. I'll take a
There's like
picture for
20 of
you.
them.
I'll take a
It's
picture.
just a
A
museum
selfie of
dedicated.
me in front of it.
Just like 100 different portraits of her.
But I'm very excited to see Florence and Pisa, and Lucca. We're going to Lucca also. We're
Nice.
Yeah.
You're going to have the best time. Are you driving? Is it a driving trip?
No, I'm leading this retreat for a week in this villa outside of Lucca. I'm not paying $21,000 a day, but maybe if Taylor Swift wants to come, I could
Right.
charge her that
Right.
much now. Yeah, we'll drive probably from Florence to the little place we're
Nice.
staying in. We love driving in foreign countries, so that'll
do
be fun.
too. I do
yeah,
too.
really fun.
Well, thank you. Right.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. You're starting a podcast yourself.
I am, if I can ever get my shit together. Yeah, I'm actually going to start 2 podcasts. I'm starting one for myself, which I think right now I'm calling it Humans on the Verge. That's the
Good
name.
name.
I love the
That's
name.
the
Good
name.
name.
That's the name of my coaching community. People are on the verge and want to learn how to figure out how to move from one way to another. And humans are literally on the verge of something all the time.
All the time.
So we're starting that, and then it looks like we're going to be fixing up and sparkling up and shining up my dad's YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know if I'll be involved in it as a voice on the podcast, but I'll be producing a podcast about my dad, probably playing his stuff and getting all sorts of people to talk about their favorite George Carlin bit or their favorite George Carlin story and stuff like that. So that'll probably
Wow.
be coming.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
I'm excited about that, and I really want to get the fans involved too. The people I run into, they always have a beautiful story about my dad, like you do, Danny. You'll have to come on and tell the stories. You guys will have to
Yeah,
come on
we
and
do.
tell your stories. But
Yeah.
and you give us a chance to just kind of have more conversation with people, and that's something that's been missing. I do a lot of work for my dad's legacy, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to be able to honor him in that way.
Awesome. That sounds
Nice.
great.
Yeah.
Mark, you have a book out?
Why not? Lessons on comedy, courage, and chutzpah. Apollo Publishers. It's out now, and I just released the audio version of it, which I did myself.
Awesome.
I'm proud of that.
Very nice. Very nice.
And we have the mugs.
We have mugs for sale on the website, wethinkitsfunny.com.
We think it's funny.com. You can get a mug.
I've got 2 albums on stand-up records that you could
You
pick up.
don't.
Okay.
Wow, that was. Is there going to
aggressive.
be wrestling or something going on here? I'm a little worried
the
about
show,
that.
The
I was
show
a little-
always ends like
makes me a
that.
little nervous.
Mark pulls out a collection of knives and threatens me, and I run out of it. And I've got comic books at fairenoughcomic.com, and go pick them up. Thank you so much for being here, Kelly. It's awesome having you here.
Thanks for having me in the bus.
Come back.
you.
Come back again.
I will.
We think it's funny. We hope you did as well. And please, if you did, leave us 5 stars and a nice rating on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends, spread the word. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wethinkitsfunny.com, and we'll see you next time with another episode. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice.
Very nice. That was terrific.
That was great.